Hi everyone, I'm Isabel and you're listening to the Visita Baste feature of San Sebastian Basilica Conservation Foundation. Right now we can't do tours of San Sebastian Basilica. This is all due to the enhanced community quarantine because of the threat of COVID-19. So instead, we're bringing the tour to you. Over the last few weeks, on our Facebook page, we've highlighted some of the religious paintings and images that make the Basilica beautiful. Now you're listening to the audio version of our posts, which we made so that the tour can be enjoyed by everyone at home. We hope you visit San Sebastian Basilica when it's safe, maybe even take a tour if you can, but for now, we hope you enjoy learning more about our church and remember to stay safe and stay indoors. Our first stop on this virtual tour is one of our images of San Sebastian. The image that we're featuring is rarely seen by the public due to its location in the dome area. The dome area is directly above the altar, and to be able to access or even see the dome, you would need either a drone or a strong scaffolding setup to climb all the way up there. This image is only one of 140 figural paintings all over the church that was done in a trompe-l'oeil style by student artists from the Academia de Dibujo y Pintura y Grabado. And we'll actually talk about some of their other paintings in the next tour stops. First, San Sebastian. San Sebastian is known by many as the patron saint of soldiers, archers, and athletes. But did you know that alongside San Roque, devotees prayed to him in times of plague and pestilence? The practice actually dates as far back as medieval Christianity. The likeness of San Sebastian in this image is a classic one. In Christian art and iconography, San Sebastian is often shown with his body pierced by arrows. Why arrows? It depicts the time that he was famously tied to a tree as target practice for the military archers of the Roman Emperor. It was a terrible ordeal, and yet miraculously he survived. Now, in classical art and Greek mythology, the arrow also symbolized the carrying of disease, especially the plague. Because of this association with arrows, and because of the association of the arrows with the plague, San Sebastian was venerated in the late Middle Ages. 14th century, the world was experiencing a devastating loss of life that at that time was unprecedented. The Black Death, or the bubonic plague, was sweeping across continents, and late medieval Christians looked to the saints for their intercession. Pestilence and disease didn't stop after the Black Death, and so the veneration of San Sebastian as a protector against plagues survived and even flourished in the era of Catholic Reformation during the 16th and 17th centuries and beyond. Let's go back to San Sebastian for a bit. Who was he, and why was he shot with arrows? San Sebastian was a soldier during the time of the Roman emperors Diocletian and Maximian, a very long time ago, sometime in the 2nd century AD. This was also a time when Christianity was punishable by death. Even though he himself was a Christian, San Sebastian joined the military on purpose so that he can visit and aid Christians who were being tortured and killed. Eventually, Emperor Diocletian discovered that San Sebastian was a Christian and immediately ordered his execution. San Sebastian was then tied to a tree and used as target practice for the military archers until he was riddled with numerous arrows and later left for dead. Miraculously, he survived the many wounds inflicted by arrows and he was healed by Saint Irene. A few days later, he returned to Emperor Diocletian and actually told him, quote, "The Lord deigned to revive me so that I could meet you and rebuke you for the evils you inflict on the servants of Christ." End quote. Diocletian seized him again and ordered his soldiers to beat him with clubs. Kind of a brutal ending to San Sebastian. Our tour continues with a closer look at the 402-year-old image of Nuestra Señora de Virgen del Carmen de San Sebastian, or Our Lady of Mount Carmel de San Sebastian. She sits right at the center of the retablo, where she's been keeping watch over Quiapo since she was enshrined in San Sebastian Basilica in 1621. Frequent visitors to the church might even notice that her illuminated image can be visible from outside the building itself, as if welcoming visitors from all over to come inside the church. Now, the devotion to the Virgen del Carmen was brought to the far corners of the Philippines by the missions of the Order of Augustinian Recollects. But other than the missions of the Recollect friars, how else did the devotion become so popular? Well, in 1621, just 3 years after the arrival of the Virgen, something happened in Manila that inspired many residents and led to the popularity of the Carmelite devotion. First, just in the city, and then to the rest of the country. This event was the miraculous recovery of Monsignor Juan Velez. He was the Dean of the Manila Cathedral and the future Bishop of Cebu. Now, Monsignor Velez fell gravely ill. He requested that the image be brought to his residence and placed in his room. It was reported by Recollect historian Licinio Ruiz that because of the presence of the Virgen del Carmen in his room, Monsignor Velez felt the presence of Mary. The illness then left his body, and he was miraculously healed. Now, in gratitude for his recovery, he organized one of the most solemn and most jam-packed fiestas ever held in Manila in honor of the Most Holy Virgin of Carmel, end quote. Monsignor Velez didn't stop at fiestas. In that same year, in 1621, he established a cofradia or confraternity of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in San Sebastian. This cofradia was an organization of Carmelite devotees not just in Manila, but also in neighboring provinces like Batangas, Laguna, and Pampanga. They raised the funds necessary to celebrate the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel de San Sebastian from January 21 to January 29, with masses, fiestas, processions, and even lavish displays. The devotion needed a tenacity of spirit that would again be displayed more than 100 years later. For a third stop in our virtual tour of San Sebastian Basilica, we'll need some imagination. Imagine the sacristy. The sacristy is that private chamber at the back of the church where the priest prepares for Mass. Imagine a small image of Mother Mary, made of wood, hidden away in that sacristy. It seems like a humble image at first, but upon closer inspection, you'll actually see it embellished with precious gemstones. After the quarantine, when you get to visit San Sebastian Basilica, you'll still find a door leading to the sacristy. It's still there, it's still being used. But what you won't see is this small yet precious image of Mother Mary. What was the image? Well, did you know that San Sebastian Basilica was once the home of the Recollect image of the Virgen de la Salud, or the Black Virgin of Health? During World War II, the Augustinian Recollect friars transferred the Virgen de la Salud from the Recollect Church of San Nicolas de Tolentino inside Intramuros to San Sebastian Basilica, where she was hidden to escape the destruction of the city. Like Our Lady of Mount Carmel de San Sebastian, the Virgen de la Salud dates back to the 17th century and was brought to the Philippines from Mexico by Recollect friars. In fact, before the war, the image always followed the order's prior provincial, who held the solemn duty of overseeing her care. By the 1600s, the devotion to Our Lady of de la Salud was so popular that her altar was filled with silver and golden ex voto offerings. What are ex voto offerings? They're trinkets of gratitude for miracles attributed to her intercession. These days, the Virgen de la Salud is no longer in San Sebastian Basilica. She continues to receive new offerings and to draw new devotees to her new home in San Nicolas de Tolentino Parish Church in Quezon City. There, she is once again under the close watch of the Recollect Prior Provincial. On to our next stop in our virtual tour of San Sebastian Basilica. This painting, Santa Rita de Cascia, is located on the wall at the left side of the altar. Now, like San Sebastian, she's also one of almost 140 figural paintings inside the church. She's also done in the trompe-l'oeil style, giving the appearance of being three-dimensional. Even after the death of Santa Rita, many miraculous acts are attributed to her. This is why she's also popularly known as the Saint of Impossible Causes. Many of these miracles have symbols attached to them, like the distinct wound on her forehead, which appeared while she meditated on the Passion of the Christ. The wound's similarity to what Christ received when he was forced to wear the crown of thorns is a sign of distinction that she was one with Christ. Although it's not shown in the painting that we're featuring, Santa Rita is also closely associated with a rose, after a visitor miraculously found 2 roses in the middle of winter to bring to her sickbed. The last stop for this leg of our Visita Baste tour brings us to San Nicolas of Tolentino, or Saint Nicholas of Tolentino. Like Santa Rita de Cascia, it was painted by artists from the Academia using a trompe-l'oeil style that uses shadows and highlights to give the appearance of a 3-dimensional image. In this image, we see San Nicolas of Tolentino in the black robes of an Augustinian friar. He's carrying 2 symbols. He's carrying lilies to represent his angelic purity and innocence, and he's carrying a plated dove as a reference to when he recovered from illness after he received a dish of roasted birds. He often visited the sick and the imprisoned to comfort and assist them. He also prayed quite often for souls in purgatory, offering his daily prayers, penances, and the masses he celebrated. Like San Sebastian and San Roque, San Nicolas of Tolentino is also one of the Catholic saints invoked in prayers against the plague. That's it for this week. Visita Baste will be back soon with a new series to highlight other aspects beyond the religious images that make the Basilica beautiful and unique. Again, visit us when it's safe, but for now, we hope you enjoy and remember to stay indoors.